Hello, everyone, and welcome inside Brad Booth, brought to you by StreamYard. We're thankful for them. Bryce Kuhn alongside Will Manis. You may look and see, and you may sit here and say, oh my gosh, where is the third member of the crew? Mr. Ralph Leary. I know he's watching right now. Ralph had a COVID scare, and I'm not making light of it. He just got tested, and I'll tell you, as of 3:28 Eastern Standard, he's negative. So we're good. We're good to go. Will and myself grabbed some lunch, but his dad is positive, and so we do great prayers to him. Hope he recovers. I know he's a big fan of the show. And Will, I think he called you 2 days ago. We were FaceTiming.
Yes, he did.
What is Auburn doing? Well, Will, Auburn's done something. Talk to us about the hire. We're going to bring it up here. We already have some comments coming in. Will, I think you commented on the show. I just want to throw that up there. That's great. But Will, tell us about what do we need to know? Bryan Harsin's the new man. He's here. Let's talk about it. I've already got one comment. Wendell Barfield brings it in here. Bring the blue turf. Wendell, are you for a Navy turf coming into Auburn Stadium? Do they go with the Smurf turf at Jordan Hare, or do they bring in the Navy turf? But really, Will, get to it. What does this hire mean? And kind of a little background, because a lot of people in the Southeast are not very familiar with him.
Yeah, Bryan Harsin. He's the guy now at Auburn. He's the alpha dog, and that's the best way to describe this guy. He is a no-nonsense, just to the core football coach. He hasn't been a whole lot of places, not the longest resume. He played quarterback at Boise State in the mid-'90s. Spent a year or two as a coach at Eastern Oregon, real small school. Didn't even know it existed. And then he was back at Boise State, a couple of positional coach jobs for him there, and then became the offensive coordinator in 2005 under Chris Peterson, and was there until I believe it was 2011. And then he went to Texas for a couple of years as their offensive coordinator under Mac Brown. Ended up at Arkansas State to replace Gus Malzahn, funny enough. Was there for one season, went 7-5, and then Chris Peterson left Boise State, his alma mater, so he goes back and becomes a head coach, and he's been there ever since and done a lot of good things. 69-19 record there. So this guy's a winner, and I think that's what Auburn needed more than anything. Just a little bit about his scheme stuff. Really a true multiple offense. That's kind of the big buzzword everybody's wanting to use now, but it really is. He does some pro stuff. He does some spread stuff. And he said many times publicly, they're going to do whatever they think is best to attack the team they're going up against. So there could be weeks where, Auburn could be I formation all week. And that's been refreshing for me, just, watching Auburn all the time, just to go and find clips of his Boise State offense, seeing a lot of I formation, offset I formation, which just seems non-existent anywhere nowadays, NFL, college, anywhere. So it was really nice to see. Defensively, Boise State runs a lot of 3-3-5, which is very uncommon for the SEC. But Auburn's base defense under Kevin Steele has been 4-2-5 the last couple of seasons, so not all that different. But, it's all going to come down to who he hires as his coordinators, who he's going to have in the room, helping game plan with them, how they're going to attack teams, And I think the big thing about Bryan Harsin, he's really like an anti-Auburn type hire for Auburn. I mean, total outsider, not cut from the same cloth, which is how Auburn normally likes to do things. So, yeah, that's just a little quick thing on Bryan Harsin.
A little bit of background information. Will had an article that came out I think within the hour to hour and a half of the hire of Bryan Harsin. It got some good reviews, so make sure to check us out at thecrowdedbooth.com as well. Listen, you can get your free subscription until the end of the year, and then we're going to be doing some awesome things to round out the new year. Wendell throws another comment. I want to bring it back to him now. Absolutely, he wants a Navy field with orange lines. Will, I know we're going to talk a lot about Auburn today. Is that hideous to you, or how do you feel about it?
In my head, it looks pretty good. Now, in practice, who knows? Probably not. Orange lines can get messy. Even at Boise, they still have the white lines, so you're probably going to have to stick with white lines.
Well, I want to bring in here actually Bryan Harsin. No. He's not coming live on the show. Don't let anyone get wrong there. But you found a quote from his time at Boise State. And listen, very successful, 70-plus wins, around 25 losses in his time there, won a Fiesta Bowl. This is a team, Boise State, we talked a lot about on the show. They're a team that has a long tradition of being a very, very talented group of 5 team. When I challenge group of 5 teams, not that any of them listen to me, but when I challenge them and I say, you have to have a long-standing run of success and really in order. And we've also seen the news clippings a little bit as well. Boise State kind of rumored to maybe join an American Conference. Those have come out to maybe strengthen their bid. So we'll see what happens with that. But Boise State, indeed, we're going to bring up a clip now of Bryan Harsin, and we're going to bring a little side-by-side action. You can still see myself and Will. And, Will, I think that you are pretty in tune with kind of what's going on. We're going to play a little bit of clip here, and Bryan Harsin, he's a no-nonsense guy. Here we go.
If you're on Auburn Twitter,
there's so many
most
things
likely
that
already
they've
seen this.
learned in the first 4 games. You could overwhelm young players and really all of our team, to be honest with you. You could overwhelm them with all these things have to be fixed in 1 week. It's not going to happen. Like, let's just go back to these 2 things that are most significant, and we'll focus on that, and we'll get better at it, and then we'll continue on with the development piece. And that's really been the message for the whole team, is that the biggest thing for our team, too, is just our preparation. Like, what are we doing week in and week out to get ourselves prepared? And I think our really good players, I think you see that in how they perform. They're in here studying film, they practice hard, and they get themselves ready to go each day. Really good players come out on Tuesday and they practice really well because they're prepared. Some of the other players that are good players for us, at times, I would say our consistency is not where it needs to be that way. And really it comes back to how do you prepare? I hit a few guys up this morning, and it's not real early in the morning, but they don't have class in the morning and they're just hanging around in bed. And it's like, why aren't you not over here studying some film? Because you're not in a position to be that type of player that you can just show up. And they're guys that are kind of fringe guys and all that. And then guys wonder why they don't play. They wonder why they're not more successful. They wonder why they don't get the reps in practice, because you ask them what the play is and they look at you and it's right there in front of you. The signals are right there. The call was right there. Coaches are telling you the play. So to me, it's,
Bryce, you're muted.
Oh, muted again. Guys, I'm going to get this, I promise. You see a little bit of kind of the person that Bryan Harsin is right there. Will, you talked about it on your close-up. We'll call it that, on your close-up. This is not your traditional Auburn hire. It's not. It's not cut from the same cloth, although there is the Gus connection, I guess. And correct me if I'm wrong. Gus's first year at Auburn, they played Arkansas State.
Yes.
With Bryan Harsin, the head coach, so they went head-to-head. So I guess he's faced Auburn once. But talk to me about how the trickle-down effect. I like to talk about that because it goes from the top down. Now, we talked about it, kind of some of the obstacles that happened with Auburn's job, and I think when you look at this, you can say, hey, there's some great things, there's some good things. There's a reason people turned down the job. I'm not going to straight up copy what our good friend Josh Pate said, but he did have a good point when he said, if those are still there, there's still room for concern. But you talked about in our car ride earlier today, Alan Green, the athletic director for Auburn, kind of took this one by the horns, per se, and he led this charge. What does that show you from kind of maybe is there a shift, or is Harsin going to have full control?
Yeah, by all accounts, everything that's been made public, he's got full control, whatever he wants. Of course, there's budgetary restrictions, but there's nothing that's been made public that would indicate he couldn't bring his own staff. And like you said, Alan Green he just took the lead. I mean, he's been, in the short time he's been at Auburn, been kind of a lead from behind the scenes type of guy, but now he's coming out in front, being a leader. And I mean, this really shouldn't even be a topic of discussion, because you think this is how every head coaching decision should be made at every school, but Auburn's unique in that way. And, and I feel like if those concerns were there, and the concerns that I've talked about, the last week or so, being that, Auburn's a very difficult job. Established, Power 5 coaches are not really going to come to Auburn. I think that was shown by this coaching search. And it was going to take a guy with the attitude that Bryan Harsin has, that like, hey, I can do this. And I'm going to do it my way. And that's really what Alan Green said in the official release that really impressed him.
Harsin is going to be, I guess, on officially day one of the job today. One of the things you have to be able to do great in college football, you have to be able to recruit. Will, walk me through the recruiting class. You covered it, kind of went through each prospect, or I should say commit or signee that made their official decision last Wednesday. But there's still some guys out there that Auburn really wants to pick up. How does this affect being a guy who maybe doesn't have those relationships with some of those guys in the Southeast? Is this a situation where you see him keeping on maybe some key members, some under-the-radar type of guys that we don't hear about, but that have some relationships? Maybe it's an analyst, maybe it's a positions coach, something like that to keep them on some kind of role to continue the recruiting pattern Auburn's on right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially like you said, he has really no ties to the Southeast, no recruiting ties to the Southeast. So he's definitely going to have to strongly consider keeping some from the previous staff. But as far as the signees go, I think they're going to be firm. I mean, a lot of them have made comments about Bryan Harsin, 69-19 at Boise State. Sounds like a winner to me. Let's go. And you know, it's kind of interesting how this all played out, because a lot of guys that Malzahn was able to get across the line, and of course with the help of Kevin Steele being in the interim role, seeing out signing day, is they really have a lot of prospects and signees now that are committed to Auburn. I mean, they're not committed to the coaching staff. They're committed to Auburn. They know what Auburn is. Auburn's kind of just that blue-collar attitude. And, you know, that's why I think Harsin is a good fit. But you know, we're going to see it with players already on the roster. They're going to clash, I think, with Harsin's attitude and outlook on it. And some guys aren't going to be around for that. So if you see some players into the transfer portal in the next week or so, don't freak out, because those are guys that Harsin probably doesn't want around anyway.
I'll tell you one guy who comes to mind is Anthony Schwartz, not afraid to voice his opinion on Twitter. Yeah. I'm scrolling through his Twitter right now, and I actually want to share some of the tweets. We're going to go through his Twitter. We're not bringing up old stuff to try to ruin his potential NFL career by any means. But we're gonna take a look at what he can do, because I think when you have a guy who, let's say, an Auburn guy. Would you agree Anthony Schwartz is an Auburn guy? And tell us a little bit about him as I'm getting this ready. What does he bring this team? Maybe is it from a leadership standpoint and a coaching transition?
Yeah, so, you know, just going back to when he was being recruited, there wasn't a whole lot of other SEC schools interested in him, because he's really a track star. I mean, that's really – everybody knows about his speed. He's really a track guy. And Gus Malzahn believed in him, that he could be a wide receiver, and he really made some major strides this year, rounding out his game as kind of his track career is either being put on the back burner or didn't work out the way he was hoping it would. But, you know, like you said, as far as a leadership standpoint goes, I think a lot of players look up to him as a leader. Of course, he's not afraid to speak his mind, as we see here, giving his opinion. He looks like he's in favor of the blue field, which is cool. Yeah. I personally love Anthony Schwartz on Twitter. I think he's really funny. And
he talks about right here the blue field. That was the first thing he said, talking with Trevon Reed. He's a recruiting pitch. This one right here, Ronaldo, a little bit of a smirk, a little bit of something right there, and then obviously retweeting as well. So, you know, I think that's cool to see exactly what these guys and how much they care about the program as well. I think when you kind of look at what Auburn has in place, we talked about it. They have the talent. This is not a team that I think is going to go sub 500 next year. They have the talent to win 7-8 games. But I wanted to give you this, because you've talked about this, and this is not going to be a long show today. We had our long one on Monday. That was a ton of fun. But for this one, we're not going to be back for, we'll say, a couple days after the Christmas holiday. So I want to give you a chance, because there's going to be a lot of things that develop, whether it's, you know, he has his press conference tomorrow. We'll take a look at that. He has, obviously, a job to do to decide if he's going to retain some people, to bring some people back. I want a message to the fans from you. For the fan that sits there and is upset, and we know these fans, we know some of these fans, we're not calling them out by name, but is upset, feels like they've been wronged, and maybe I'll say this, cheers more since 2010 than being an Auburn guy. I think down in the Southeast, and listen, everywhere across the nation, college football fans take this to heart, you know, especially here in the Southeast, and especially in a city like Columbus, where there's a good mixture of Alabama, Auburn, and Georgia fans. You bleed red and black. You bleed crimson and white. You bleed navy and orange. Talk to the Auburn fans, for the person that is more concerned maybe they're not a big fan since 2010. They just seen those. What is your realistic expectation, and what should it be? The expectations are going to be astronomical, I think, because it's Auburn. It's one of the most high-pressure jobs there is. But I want you to talk directly to the fans. I'm going to give you another close-up here. What for you? What do you see happening?
Well, I mean, Harsin's going to have time to implement what he wants to do. And you have to give him that time because, I mean, it's been said many, many times, Auburn's offensive line is bad. It's bad. There's not a whole lot to work with. There's not a ton of potential. There's not a ton of talent there right now. So you got to give him time to at least strengthen the offensive line. And Harsin's a guy that's going to run the ball. I mean, he's not as committed to run play action as Gus Malzahn. But he does do a lot of run play action. He did at Boise State. So you got to give him time at least to help with the offensive line. And, like you said, 7-5, 8-4, 9-3, not out of the realm of possibility next year. Year one under Harsin. You just look ahead. Auburn, they've got Alabama and Georgia at home. So those are, as we've seen, anything can happen when Auburn's at home against their rivals. But don't jump the gun. Like I said a minute ago, there's probably going to be some players currently on the team that are going to jump ship. They're going to clash with Harsin because he's a no-nonsense guy. And, Gus Malzahn was no-nonsense as well, but Harsin, he comes off much harder, much sharper edge than Gus Malzahn did. So it's going to be interesting to see. Fans overreact. Do the best you can to not overreact.
Do you believe that this is as you look ahead to 2021, obviously the bowl game, the Citrus Bowl against Northwestern, Kevin Steele will be the interim coach. Is this the last time we see him in an Auburn polo or pullover? What are your thoughts on that?
Who knows, honestly. A lot of rumors and speculation going around that I may or may not agree with, whatever. So who knows?
Who knows? Let's take a look at Auburn's 21 schedule as well. You look right here. We'll make sure we can see this and everything. Yep, we can. They're going to head off with Akron, and then this big date right here at Penn State. That is going to be a massive, massive test. But who knows? It's going to be interesting. Then they come home to face Sunbelt opponent Georgia State and then Alabama State before getting into the meat of that schedule. Let's not forget that Georgia game.
See, that's not until November. Alabama State.
Yeah, those are not until November. Those SEC game dates have not been released. But let's take a look at this non-conference. You have to feel confident, Will, about going 3-1. I think if you went 3-1 in that, you feel confident about it. But for you looking at that non-conference schedule, that's going to be a big, big test there September 18th against Penn State in Beaver Stadium, sure to be a whiteout.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it'll be whiteout. But just think about the talent that Auburn has, and I know what they bring back. I don't know a whole lot about what Penn State's bringing back, but I feel pretty confident Auburn can be 4-0. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows Gus Malzahn struggled outside of Jordan-Hare Stadium. Who knows with Bryan Harsin? That it could be he could have just as much success on the road as he did at home. To go 69-19, you got to win a lot of road games too.
Yeah.
So, I don't. And he's the type of guy that's not going to back down. He's not going to be afraid to go into Beaver Stadium for a whiteout. So, I think Auburn could win all four of those.
Yeah, Auburn looking at that non-conference, you're going to have Penn State, what they traditionally have one of the hardest schedules in the conference. Now, let's hope everything stays the same. This is a look. We don't know when the dates will be of what the SEC games, the slate. Obviously, everyone in the West, they're going to draw Georgia and South Carolina from the East. If everything holds as that, you have to feel good about this game right here. They're obviously going to be in a rebuilding year. Shane Beamer. That's going to be a matchup of two brand new coaches going out of the SEC. A&M's losing Kellen Mond. We'll see how that goes. But Jimbo has traditionally been a good developer of quarterbacks.
A lot of their offensive line as well.
Yeah. That's one of the better
four of the five starters for Texas A&M were seniors this year.
Yes, I think maybe it was three of them were redshirt seniors and one was a senior, and then the other one was a sophomore. So that sophomore will be back with obviously big playing time. Mm-hmm. You see Arkansas right there. You're going on the road. What to really expect from them, we don't know. Obviously, you get Alabama, Georgia at home. I'm telling you one thing. Well, I've been to a game. You and I were at the same game in 2017 when Georgia came in, number one team in the nation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Everything out there in front of them for a perfect season. And listen, they still made the college football playoff and the national championship, but they ran into a buzzsaw when you play at Jordan-Hare. And I'm going to tell you this right now, and I'll say this, and I don't know how many people are watching, but I want to know. We're going to get off the schedule, and we're going to go back to just the little dual faces here. This may be, and I'm going to throw you one here as we wrap up the show. Like I said, quick show once again as everyone gets ready for the Christmas holiday. If you give me an atmosphere, fourth quarter, I think it is, when Swag Surfing comes on in Jordan-Hare Stadium, I'm telling you right now, I don't know what other school does it, and I think a lot of schools play that song. But when that song comes on and the whole student section moves in unison, I'm telling you, it's one of the greatest atmospheres. Auburn at home. We know Gus did well at that, but like you said, the proof of the tape, and if he can get the job done, what's ultimately going to determine how long his tenure is on the Plains is going to be, can he win big games on the road? But I'm telling you one thing. I want to ask you this real quick. They got Penn State coming up next year. That's an unreal home environment. Give me one more home environment, really cool, a cool one that maybe you've been, maybe you haven't been, but you see what's a great tradition in college football from a home perspective as we wrap up here.
Oh, man.
I know that's a hard one.
Being in the SEC, there's so many good ones. Of course, Tiger Stadium down at LSU is possibly the hardest place to play in the country. Kyle Field, Texas A&M is a really cool one. I know, especially you being a Georgia guy and being in the East, having to see South Carolina every year and be there every other year, hearing that the rooster crowing, that really gets them going.
The rooster crowing and sandstorm. When you put those two together and the white towers are going, I'm telling you, if Shane Beamer can get things going, that is going to be an exciting college football landscape. I think the SEC as a whole, I'm going to go with I hate to say it. I love what Clemson has. Coming down the rock, that's one of the – or coming down, touching the rock, down the hill. That's an awesome, awesome atmosphere. But listen, Penn State, Auburn next year, that's going to be a marquee matchup. We're thinking Franklin – He'll be there. Too much money.
He'll probably be back.
He'll be back. But Will, we appreciate your insight. You had obviously some articles coming out. We're going to take a look more schematically at what they're going to do next week. We had that. We're going to break down some film of what Auburn fans can expect out of their new hire. Is it going to go back to the days of Nick Marshall? I don't think so. I don't know if it's going to be that. It may be a little bit different, as Will was talking about. We're going to take a look at that. We're also going to have maybe a little recap of the press conference tomorrow. He's going to get up in front of the Auburn media for the first time. And I don't know what the media was like in Boise, Idaho, but you're going to get a little more national attention down here in the SEC. He's going to get his first introduction. But one thing I wanted to point out, we were talking about this an hour and a half ago as we wrap up. This is a hire in 5 to 10 years, Will, that I feel like, and I said this to you, we could look back and I could say, Will, can you believe 5 years ago Auburn plucked a guy out of Boise State and thought it was going to work? Or we could look 5 to 10 years and say, Will, Auburn's won 2 or 3 SEC titles and has a national title or 2 under their belt, and we thought they were crazy. And this was like their 19th option for a head coach. I think that's why we talk about this, but ultimately you cannot judge a hire right now in year one. You can't judge a hire in year 1, year 2, year 3. To me, you got to give them at least 4 years to get their whole personnel package in there in a full cycle of recruiting before you can really kind of make that judgment. What do you expect? I don't want to give you any prediction. Don't want to put you on the spot as we wrap up and we close out here. Will Auburn have – I'll ask you this. Will Auburn, over the next 10 years, will Auburn have a winning record against Alabama? I'm going to put you on the spot. I know there's a group message that if they're watching this or hear about this, they're going to give you something about it. But will Auburn have a winning record against Alabama over the next 10 years?
I am going to say yes.
Okay. And that could be 6-4. And it doesn't mean he's saying it's 9-1 or 10-0.
Yeah.
Next one. Does Auburn have an SEC championship under their belt, or how many are you feeling like they could win?
Oh, man. Well, if they're going to have a winning record against Alabama, they got to have at least one, right?
Yeah, you would think, unless somebody's about to rise out of the SEC West we can't see here. But I would say maybe 1 or 2. I feel comfortable giving Auburn that number the next 10 years. Auburn's a streaky team. They're a team that every 3 or 4 years they just come out of nowhere and dominate. Last question.
It's like we said. It's all going to depend on who Harsin's assistants are, what recruiters he hires, even more so than coaches, because it's about the talent.
It's about who you surround yourself with. I mean, that's going to be huge. Last question: does Auburn have a national championship win under their belt in the next 10 years? In the next 10 years,
oh man, I have to say yes.
I think you got to say yes.
That's what everybody wants. That's what I want.
That's what you want.
That's what Auburn people want.
Listen, we appreciate everyone tuning in. Obviously, I was about to say thanks for joining, but you join every single show. You're on every single show. But if you want to find the latest out of what we're doing, thecrowdedbooth.com, you can sign up for free. Will's got some great content. I also want to give a shout out to Callaway High School. They're playing in the state title game 6 days from today up at Georgia State Stadium, now Center Park Stadium. Got to get that right for the Georgia State fans. They're playing a tough Fitzgerald team. It's going to be a fun game to watch. Hopefully, we're going to be there in attendance as well. Hats off to them. Hats off to Andrew Caraway. We're going to have a piece coming out on Callaway and their journey to the state championship. They've made the semifinals the past 3 years. They finally broke through this year and were able to take it all the way to state. We'll see what they do next Tuesday. Will, you got some stuff coming out like we talked about, maybe a film breakdown. We'll have a show next week. We may even get a guest that knows a little bit more about us, which shouldn't take a lot to know more than us on the Auburn situation. But overall, I would say it's a good football guy, good hire. Will, we appreciate you joining the show. We are glad. I don't know why I say that because you're always on the show, but we appreciate it. And everyone have a Merry Christmas. And Will, national championship in 10 years. That's what you're going with, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, everyone, have a Merry Christmas. We appreciate you watching. And make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and get Will out of the cave that he is in right now and into a little bit of light. We appreciate everyone watching. Thanks, everybody.